My name is Callum, and if there's one thing I've learned the hard way, it's that family can be the worst thieves. I used to think betrayal was something that happened in movies, dramatic and far-fetched, but nope. It happens in real life, too, sometimes by the very people you're supposed to trust. And in my case, it was my older brother, Liam. Liam has always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. If he wanted something, he took it. If he messed up, someone else paid the price. Growing up, I got used to him borrowing my things and never giving them back. Video games, clothes, money from my wallet. And when I complained, I was being selfish. He's your older brother, Callum. He looks out for you, Mom would say, as if taking my stuff was some act of love. Dad wasn't any better. If Liam messed up, I was the scapegoat. If Liam needed help, I was expected to step up. That was just the way things were. I should have known he'd eventually do something worse. I should have been more careful. See, for the past 5 years, I've been saving up for my first house. Every spare dollar went into that fund. I picked up extra shifts, skipped vacations, lived frugally. It wasn't just about owning property, it was about freedom, independence. No more being dragged into Liam's messes, no more being guilt-tripped by our parents. My escape was so close I could taste it. Then, one morning, I checked my account, and my stomach dropped. The money was gone. All of it. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I refreshed the page, checked my transaction history. And that's when I saw it, a huge withdrawal, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. Panic turned to confusion. Then, as I clicked through my settings, realization dawned on me like a slow, sickening punch to the gut. Liam, he knew about my savings. And more importantly, he knew about the shared account I'd stupidly kept open from years ago, back when our parents insisted we have one for emergencies. I rarely touched it, but Liam, he must have noticed. And somehow, he still had access. I called him immediately. No answer. I texted, nothing. My hands were shaking. I drove straight to his place, heart pounding in my chest. The moment he opened the door, I could already tell. That smug, self-satisfied smirk. "Ah, Callum, I was wondering when you'd show up," he said, leaning lazily against the doorframe. "What the hell did you do?" My voice came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. Liam shrugged. "Relax. I just borrowed it." Borrowed. I could barely breathe. That was my house fund. "Liam, where is it?" And then, like the absolute bastard he was, he grinned and pulled out his phone. A few swipes, and suddenly, I was staring at a picture, a sleek, brand new sports car, gleaming under the dealership lights. My heart sank. "You don't need a house yet," he said, laughing. "Just be patient." I swear, something inside me snapped right then and there. But instead of yelling, instead of lunging at him like I so desperately wanted to, I went quiet. I turned around and walked away, because I knew if I stayed, I'd do something I couldn't take back. Liam thought he won. He thought I'd just roll over like I always had. But this time, I wasn't going to let it slide. This time, I was going to make him regret everything. For the next few days, I was in a haze. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that smug look on Liam's face, that damn picture of his new car. My money, years of saving, grinding, sacrificing, all wiped away in an instant because my brother decided he was entitled to it. And the worst part? My parents. I called them, thinking, stupidly, that maybe, just maybe, they'd finally see Liam for what he was. That they'd finally take my side. I should have known better. Mom sighed like I was overreacting. "Callum, it's just money. You can always save up again." "Mom, it wasn't just money. It was everything I had." "You're young," she said, as if that somehow made it better. "You have plenty of time to buy a house. Your brother, he's been struggling lately, you know? He really needed a win." I nearly dropped my phone. A win? He stole from me. He took my money and blew it on a car. Well, there was a long pause. "He said he'd pay you back." I let out a bitter laugh. "And you actually believe that?" Dad finally chimed in, his voice tired. "Callum, we're a family. Families help each other. Maybe this is a lesson for you, to be less materialistic." That was it. That was when I realized I was alone in this. My parents weren't going to help. Liam wasn't going to magically grow a conscience. If I wanted my money back, I had to take matters into my own hands. And so, I did what Liam never expected. I went quiet. I stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped showing up at family dinners. When Mom asked why I wasn't coming over, I just said I was busy. I knew she'd relay that back to Liam, and I knew he'd assume I was sulking, pouting. that I was just going to get over it like I always had. He had no idea I was planning my revenge. I spent the next week digging. And oh, did I find things. Liam wasn't just careless, he was reckless. That brand new sports car? He didn't just buy it. He financed it under his name. And Liam, being Liam, had terrible credit. That meant sky-high monthly payments. Payments he could barely afford. Then, there was his job, or, rather, the lack of job security. Liam worked in sales, a commission-based gig that was feast or famine. He was already behind on rent. I found eviction notices crumpled up in his trash when I dropped by unexpectedly one day. His landlord hated him, and from the looks of it, he was hanging by a thread. And the final nail in the coffin? Insurance fraud. Liam had told the dealership he'd be using the car for personal use only, which got him a lower rate. But I knew for a fact he was using it for side gigs, sometimes as a private chauffeur for quick cash, sometimes for ride-sharing. All it took was one anonymous tip to his insurance company, and they'd come down on him hard. I had all the pieces. Now, I just had to set them in motion. I started small. First, I made sure his landlord got a little reminder about those late payments. A friendly nudge, just in case they'd forgotten. Then, I placed a call to his insurance provider, acting like a concerned citizen who just happened to notice his car being used for commercial purposes. They assured me they'd look into it. And finally, I waited until Liam was at work before making my move. I walked into the dealership, calm and collected. The salesman who sold him the car was there, a slick-looking guy in a suit. I put on my best polite but frustrated customer face. "Hey, I'm trying to track down some information about a car my brother recently purchased," I said. "There's been a bit of a situation." The guy perked up immediately, all professional charm. "Of course. What seems to be the issue?" I sighed, feigning exasperation. "Well, he told me he paid for it in full, but I found out he actually financed it under his name. Problem is, he used some of my financial information when applying. I'm worried there's been some, let's call it creative paperwork involved." The salesman's expression faltered just a little. That was all I needed. "Now, I'd hate to have to escalate this legally," I continued, lowering my voice. "But I just need to confirm whether my name appears anywhere on that paperwork. If it does, well, I'd have no choice but to report it as fraud. I'm sure you understand." I saw the exact moment the guy started panicking. "Let me just check the system real quick." I waited, watching as he scrolled through Liam's file. I knew my name wasn't there. Liam hadn't been dumb enough to put me down directly, but I also knew something else. Car dealerships hate fraud cases. Even the slightest whiff of it can get a deal reversed. The salesman cleared his throat. "Oh well, I can assure you, sir, that everything was processed according to policy. However, if there's any concern about fraudulent activity, I'd recommend contacting the finance department directly." Bingo. That's all I needed to hear. I nodded, thanked him, and walked out, straight to my car, where I drafted an official-sounding email to the dealership's finance office, CC&G their fraud department. I kept it vague, just enough to raise alarms. Within an hour, I got a response. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We take fraudulent applications very seriously and will be reviewing this matter immediately." I smiled. The wheels were in motion now. Liam had no idea what was coming. And the best part? I wasn't even close to done yet. 2 days later, Liam called me. I let it ring. Then again, and again. He never called me this much unless he wanted something. Finally, I answered, keeping my voice casual. "Hey, Liam, what's up?" His voice was tight on edge. "Did you do something?" I raised an eyebrow, even though he couldn't see me. "Do something? About what?" "Don't play dumb, Callum," he snapped. "The dealership just called. They said there's an issue with my financing, and now they're talking about possibly reassessing my loan. And guess what? My insurance just emailed me saying my policy is under review." I almost laughed. That was faster than I expected. "Wow, that sounds serious," I said. "But I'm not sure what that has to do with me." "Liar," Liam practically shouted. "You've been quiet for a week, and now, suddenly, everything's going wrong? I know you had something to do with this." "Liam, you stole from me," I said, my voice steady. "You stole the money I spent years saving up. And instead of apologizing, you rubbed it in my face. You told me to be patient while you drove around in a car you couldn't afford. And now you're mad because karma's finally catching up to you." "Oh, don't give me that self-righteous crap," he scoffed. "You're just being a bitter little brat. Whatever you did, undo it." Now, I let out a slow breath, pretending to think. Hmm. No, I don't think I will. Callum. Bye, Liam. I hung up. The next day, things got worse for him. I knew because I got another call, this time from my mother. Callum, what did you do? She demanded the second I picked up. Hello to you too, Mom, I said dryly. Don't be sarcastic. Your brother is in trouble. The dealership is threatening to take his car back, and now his landlord is on his case about rent. He said you did something to ruin his credit. I sighed. I didn't ruin his credit, Mom. Liam ruined his credit all on his own by being financially reckless. And maybe if you actually held him accountable for once in his life, he wouldn't be in this mess. You're his brother. You're supposed to help him, not sabotage him. I laughed bitterly. Oh, so when he steals thousands of dollars from me, I'm supposed to just let it go? But when I do something that makes him face the consequences of his actions, suddenly I'm the bad guy? You don't understand, she huffed. He's under a lot of stress right now. And I'm not. I shot back. Do you even care that I lost my entire house fund? Or is Liam's sports car more important than my future? There was a pause. Callum, just fix this. Please. No. I hung up. Now, I knew Liam. I knew he wasn't going to take this lying down. And sure enough, he tried to retaliate. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. You think you're smart? Huh? Watch your back. Real mature. But I wasn't worried. Liam was all bark, no bite. He'd never been able to handle things on his own. He always had someone, usually my parents, cleaning up his messes. But now, there was no one to save him. The next morning, I decided to check in on my handiwork. I made a call to the finance office at the dealership, playing the concerned victim of potential fraud again. The woman on the other end was polite but firm. We've identified some inconsistencies in the application, she told me. At this time, the loan is being reassessed, and pending further investigation, the vehicle may be repossessed if payments cannot be verified. Repossessed. That meant Liam had only a short window before they took his precious car away. But that wasn't all. My little tip to his insurance company had worked. Since he had lied about how he was using the car, his policy was under review. And from what I gathered, there was a high chance they'd either cancel it entirely or jack up his rates so high he couldn't afford them. And then, of course, there was his landlord. I'd made sure they got every single piece of documentation about his late payments. If Liam missed one more, eviction was on the table. Liam was about to lose everything. And yet, I still wasn't done. Because there was one last thing, something that would ensure he had no way out. I took a deep breath, pulled up my email, and drafted one final message. It was time to seal his fate. A few days passed, and I heard nothing from Liam. No calls, no texts. Even my parents went unusually quiet. That meant one thing: he was scrambling, trying to fix the mess he'd made. But I also knew something else. Liam wasn't the type to admit defeat easily. He was either scheming or hoping our parents would step in and fix everything for him. Then, one evening, just as I was getting ready to turn in for the night, there was a loud, rapid knocking at my door. Not a normal knock, more like someone trying to break it down. I already knew who it was. With a sigh, I walked over and pulled the door open. There he stood, Liam, looking absolutely furious. His normally well-groomed hair was disheveled, his expensive jacket slightly wrinkled, and his expression was a mix of rage and panic. His eyes were practically bulging out of his skull. You ruined my life, he exploded, shoving his way inside before I could stop him. I let out a slow breath, closing the door behind him. And hello to you too, Liam. Don't start with me, Callum, he growled. You know exactly what you did. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You mean making sure you face the consequences of your own actions? Yeah, I do know what I did. And you deserved every bit of it. They're taking my car, he shouted, pacing like a caged animal. The dealership called today and said my loan was under review, and guess what? Turns out lying on an application is a big deal. Who knew? He let out a bitter laugh before whirling on me. Oh, and my insurance? Canceled. Just like that. They said I committed fraud or whatever. And my landlord? They're threatening eviction because apparently they don't like tenants who habitually fail to meet payment deadlines. I wonder who sent them that info. I didn't answer. He already knew. You had no right, he continued, stepping closer, his voice shaking with fury. None of this had anything to do with you. I scoffed. Oh, really? Because last I checked, you stole thousands of dollars from me. That money was supposed to be for my house, Liam, my future. And you took it like it was nothing, just so you could show off in some flashy car. And the worst part? You weren't even sorry. You laughed in my face. I was going to pay you back, he snapped. When? I shot back. Be specific. He opened his mouth, then shut it. We both knew the truth. He was never going to pay me back. Not unless he absolutely had to. He exhaled sharply, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. Fine. You got your little revenge. You made your point. Now fix it. I stared at him, my expression unreadable. Fix what? Call the dealership. Tell them it was a mistake. No. Call the insurance company. Say you lied. No. Call my landlord and no. His nostrils flared. Callum, I swear. You swear what? I cut him off, my voice dangerously calm. What are you going to do, Liam? Steal from me again? You've already taken everything I worked for. And now that things aren't going your way, you want me to clean up your mess? Not happening. Liam let out a frustrated noise and threw himself onto my couch, rubbing his temples like this was also stressful for him. I can't believe this, he muttered. I was supposed to be set. Everything was perfect. And now I have nothing. You know what's crazy? I said, my voice eerily light. You still could have had everything. You could have just asked me for a loan. We could have worked something out. But instead, you decided to be greedy. And now you're broke. He didn't respond. A moment of silence stretched between us. Then, finally, he exhaled through his nose and sat up, looking at me with something new in his expression. Something calculating. Okay, he said slowly. How much? I blinked. What? How much do you want? He asked, his tone forcefully casual. To undo all of this. Name your price. I laughed. I actually laughed. You seriously think you can buy your way out of this? Everything has a price, he shot back. I shook my head. Not this time. His jaw clenched. He was losing control of the situation, and he knew it. Then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it. An email. From my bank. The subject line? Incoming wire transfer received. I clicked it open, and there it was. The full amount of my stolen money, every last cent, back in my account. I stared at it for a long moment before turning the screen toward him. What's this? Liam didn't meet my eyes. I had to borrow it, he mumbled. Took out a loan. Just undo everything now. I smiled, slipping my phone back into my pocket. No. His head snapped up. What? I got my money back. But that doesn't mean I'm letting you off the hook. You're still going to lose everything, Liam. And maybe, just maybe, when you hit rock bottom, you'll finally understand what it feels like. Liam shot up from the couch, his face red with rage. You smug little, I held up a hand. Leave, Liam. We're done here. He stood there, breathing heavily, his hands twitching like he wanted to punch something. But he didn't. Because he knew, this time, there was nothing he could do. Finally, he turned on his heel and stormed out, slamming the door so hard that the walls shook. I let out a slow breath, sinking onto my couch. I had my money back. Liam was about to lose everything. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peaceful. But that peace didn't last long. Because, as I had predicted, Liam wasn't done. At first, it was little things. He'd call from different numbers, leaving angry voicemails about how I'd ruined his life, and how I didn't understand what I'd done. I blocked him each time. Then, my parents started calling, demanding to know why Liam was in such a mess. You took it too far, Callum. My mom scolded over the phone. He's your brother. You should be helping him, not tearing him down. I laughed bitterly. Helping him? Like how he helped himself to my savings. That was different, she huffed. He made a mistake. You didn't have to go and destroy his life over it. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Mom, I didn't destroy his life. He did. I just made sure he couldn't get away with it. Well, your father, and I think you should fix it. If you really cared about family, you'd talk to the bank, the dealership, do something to help him. I shook my head. No, I've already done more than enough. If Liam wants to fix his life, he can do it himself. She sputtered, but I ended the call before she could guilt-trip me further. They would never see things my way. I had finally accepted that. But Liam? He wasn't done yet. A few nights later, I woke up to a loud bang outside my apartment. My stomach dropped as I rushed to my window, and sure enough, there was Liam, standing next to my car. He had a baseball bat in his hands, his whole body tense with rage. Before he could take another swing, I grabbed my phone and called the cops. By the time they arrived, he had shattered both my side mirrors and left a deep dent in the driver's door. But the real kicker? When the officers asked him why he did it, he went on a whole rant about how I ruined his life, and that this was payback. They didn't like that answer. Liam was arrested for vandalism and property damage. My insurance covered the repairs, and with the police report, I wasn't on the hook for a dime. But Liam? He now had legal fees to deal with on top of everything else. And this time, there was no one to bail him out. My parents begged me to drop the charges, but I refused. Liam needed to learn that actions had consequences. And when the court date finally came, he looked more defeated than I had ever seen him. His expensive clothes were gone, replaced by something much more modest. The arrogance was gone too. When the judge asked if I had anything to say, I simply said, I just want my brother to finally take responsibility for his actions. That was the last time I saw Liam in person. From what I heard, he had to sell what little he had left to cover his legal costs. The car was gone. His fancy lifestyle? Gone. He moved back in with my parents, who were now also struggling with money since they had been helping him. He tried getting a job, but with his track record, it wasn't easy. And eventually, the call stopped. I guess he finally realized I wasn't going to save him. As for me, I put my money back into my savings, and a few months later, I finally bought my first home, the one I had been dreaming about before Liam stole from me. And let me tell you, walking through that front door, knowing I had earned it, knowing no one could take it from me, it felt better than any revenge ever could. So, what do you think? Was I too harsh? Should I have forgiven him? Or did he finally get what he deserved? Let me know. I always knew my family didn't think much of me. Growing up, I was the odd one out, the quiet kid who didn't fit into their mold. While my cousins boasted about their weekend parties and expensive clothes, I was the nerd who spent his time learning, working, and planning a way out. I wasn't interested in impressing anyone, least of all my arrogant, self-absorbed relatives. But as fate would have it, I ended up making it. I worked my ass off, built something for myself, and made more money than any of them ever had. Not that they cared. Or rather, not that they admitted they cared. They just pretended my success didn't exist until they saw a way to benefit from it. Which brings us to tonight. I hadn't planned on seeing them. In fact, I'd spent years avoiding these family gatherings because they were always the same. Condescending remarks, fake smiles, and constant reminders that, no matter what I achieved, I'd always be just Mark to them, the black sheep. But my mother, bless her heart, had practically begged me to come. Just one dinner, Mark. For me, it's been years. I caved. I regretted it the second I walked into that overpriced steakhouse. The entire extended family was already seated at a long, candlelit table, laughing and talking like something out of a movie. My cousin Jason, my biggest tormentor growing up, was in the center, grinning like he owned the place. The moment his eyes landed on me, that grin widened. Oh wow, look who decided to show up. Jason leaned back in his chair, his voice loud enough to turn a few heads. Didn't think you had time for us, big shot. I forced a polite smile and pulled out a chair near the end of the table. Jason frowned. Sorry, Mark, but that seat's taken. I glanced around. The only empty seats were next to Jason or his equally smug sister, Rachel. I reached for a different chair, but Rachel rolled her eyes. That one too. I blinked. You're kidding. Jason chuckled and leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. Mark, this table is for family. You can find a spot outside. Laughter. Not from everyone, but from enough people to make my jaw tighten. My mother looked uncomfortable, but she didn't say anything. She never did. My aunt smirked. My uncle shook his head like I was some embarrassing joke. And Jason? Jason looked pleased with himself. I could have left. I should have left. But instead, I smiled. Outside, huh? I said, Nah, I'll stay. I grabbed an empty chair from a nearby table and dragged it over, placing it just outside the main group, but still close enough that I was technically at the table. A waiter came over, looking uncertain, but I just waved him off and ordered a coffee. Jason and Rachel shared a look, but they didn't argue. Not yet. Then the real show began. I wasn't stupid. I knew why they wanted me here. They didn't care about catching up. They cared about flexing. All throughout dinner, they made a show of ordering the most expensive things on the menu. I'll take the Wagyu, Jason announced, flipping the menu shut. And the lobster. Oh, and another round of drinks for everyone. He shot me a smirk. We're celebrating, after all. Rachel grinned. Yeah, we should really enjoy ourselves tonight. Desserts too, my uncle chimed in. Get the most expensive ones. The waiters kept coming, and the bill kept climbing. I said nothing. I just sipped my coffee, watching them with an amused expression. Then, when the plates were empty, the wine glasses drained, and everyone was lounging back with satisfied sighs. The waiter arrived with the bill, $3, 247. He placed it directly in front of me. Jason stretched lazily. You got this right, Mark? Rachel giggled. Come on, it's nothing to you. Silence. The entire table was looking at me now, waiting. I let the moment stretch, then slowly picked up the bill, glancing over it like I actually cared about the total. Then I chuckled. A soft, knowing sound. Jason frowned. What's so funny? I leaned back, took another sip of my coffee, and grinned. Oh, I said. You guys have no idea who's covering it tonight. And with that, I placed the bill back down, right in front of Jason. Jason stared at the bill, blinking a few times as if trying to make sense of what just happened. I leaned back, looking completely at ease, watching the confusion spread across the table like wildfire. Wait, you're serious? Jason's voice dropped slightly, but there was a nervous edge to it now. His grin faltered, just for a second. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I took another slow sip of my coffee, watching his expression shift from confusion to realization, then to something far darker. Rachel, noticing the change, gave Jason a quick nudge. Isn't your company doing well, Mark? She asked sweetly, the edge of sarcasm nearly unnoticeable. Surely a little dinner like this won't put a dent in your wallet. There it was. The expectation, the assumption that I had to pay for their indulgence, just because I was the successful one. They didn't care about the effort it took to get here. They didn't care that I busted my ass for years building my own business from the ground up. All they cared about was the money they thought I should share with them. But this wasn't just about money. No, this was about them thinking they could get away with treating me like dirt while benefiting from my success. Jason tried again, his voice now more forceful, though his smile was more a tight grimace. Come on, Mark. You know you can afford it. He looked at the waiter and back at me, like he was about to give me one last chance to be the nice guy. The bill's huge, but you're a businessman, right? Just swipe that card and call it a night. My mother, who had been silent up until now, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Mark, honey, please. It's just a dinner. It's a family gathering, and you know how they are. Her voice trailed off, as if she was trying to keep the peace, but I could tell she wasn't entirely on their side. My mother had always been the peacemaker, the one who never wanted to rock the boat. But this time, I could feel the frustration bubbling beneath the surface, the way she knew I was being taken advantage of, but didn't have the courage to say anything. I set the coffee cup down gently and looked around at the faces staring at me. My uncle, his big belly spilling over the top of his chair, was now leaning forward, his voice gruff. Look, Mark, I don't know what's going on with you, but don't act like we don't know your situation. You've been making bank for months now. Don't be a child, pay the bill, and let's go home. He was practically demanding it now, his tone cold and calculating. The others around the table nodded, some of them still grinning, others just waiting for me to buckle under the pressure. It was clear that they thought I would cave, that I would just pay to avoid the awkwardness. But I wasn't going to cave. Not this time. Not after all these years of being belittled, of being the one they always mocked or ignored when it wasn't convenient for them. And it wasn't just that. No, there was something more satisfying about watching them squirm now that they had no idea what was coming. I smiled a little. Not a big, proud grin like Jason, but a small, almost playful smile. All right, I said, my voice calm and controlled. I'll pay the bill. A chorus of relieved sighs echoed around the table, some of them even clapping me on the back like I just won some moral victory. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. Jason's face lit up. See, that wasn't so hard, was it? He gave a mock salute. Thanks, big shot. I leaned forward, my smile never faltering. Nah, I changed my mind. Good luck, guys. The silence at the table was instant, like someone had pressed the mute button. For a moment, no one moved. No one said a word. Jason's face shifted from confidence to something darker. He opened his mouth to protest, but I was already standing up, reaching for my jacket. I wasn't going anywhere just yet, but I wanted them to feel the tension rising. By the way, I added, my voice low, if you don't want to be responsible for this big check, you might want to think about how much you order next time. Jason's eyes were wide now, no longer the confident cousin who always took advantage of me. His jaw clenched, and he glanced around the table, clearly unsure what to do. He'd expected me to be the punching bag again. Instead, I was setting the rules for once. I turned to leave the table, walking slowly, knowing full well they would follow the script I had set up. The waiter was still standing there, waiting for someone to take charge. And then I heard it. Hey, Jason snapped. You can't just. But I didn't let him finish. I'll be over there, I called back, gesturing to the lounge area a few feet away, out of sight from the main dining room. Just let me know when you figured it out. I walked away. I could feel the tension in the air as I made my way to the lounge. They didn't know how to handle it. They thought they could push me, guilt trip me, and I'd just fold like I always had. But this time, I wasn't going to play their game. The arrogance, the entitlement, they were about to learn a lesson they wouldn't forget anytime soon. As I sank into the plush chair, I glanced back toward the dining area. Jason was standing there now, nervously adjusting his collar, talking in hushed tones with Rachel and my mother. Their voices were barely audible from where I sat, but I could make out a few words. Mark's not going to. He'll pay, right? Don't make him mad. We need him for the bill. Do we have enough? The desperation was obvious. They were trying to figure out who could cover what, calculating how much they could possibly scrape together without actually reaching into their own pockets. They were about to learn that this time, I wasn't going to be their backup. Minutes passed. I checked my phone, acting like I didn't have a care in the world. But every few seconds, I'd glance over, just to catch a glimpse of their panic. The waiter was lingering nearby, probably giving them the side eye, waiting for them to make a decision. The longer this went on, the more obvious it became that they were in over their heads. It wasn't long before Jason made his way over to me, looking as if he'd just walked into a room filled with hot coals. His face was a mixture of frustration and something close to guilt. I stayed seated, taking my time before looking up at him. "What's up?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. He exhaled sharply, trying to hold it together. "Mark, this isn't funny. The bill is way higher than we thought. Can you just help us out this time? I mean, we're family, right?" I couldn't help but let out a small chuckle. "Oh, I'm not laughing, Jason. I'm serious. You guys wanted this meal. You ordered whatever you wanted without asking if I was cool with it. And now you're asking me to foot the bill? For the wine? For everything?" He paused, swallowing hard. "Look, man, we didn't realize it was going to be like this. I mean, it's just dinner, right? Can't you just, help out?" I leaned back in the chair, letting his words hang in the air for a moment. This was the same tired act they always pulled. No self-awareness, no accountability. They didn't care about me. They just cared about my money. "Jason, I'm done playing this game," I said finally. "You're all grown-ups, right? You can afford to pay for your own meals. I'm not your bank anymore. I don't care if you're my family. That doesn't mean I owe you anything." His expression shifted from desperation to something more defensive, his eyes narrowing. "You're going to let us pay for all of this? After everything we've done for you? After all the times we've been there for you?" I shot him a flat look. "What? You mean all the times you've asked me to pay for everything while you sat back and acted like I owed you something? That doesn't count as being there for me, Jason." Behind him, Rachel and my mother were watching closely, and I could tell they were growing more and more anxious by the second. They knew this wasn't going how they'd planned. I could see the wheels turning in Rachel's head, probably trying to figure out some way to manipulate the situation. My mom, on the other hand, looked more panicked than I'd ever seen her. "Well, we can't just leave, can we?" Rachel's voice was high-pitched now, cracking with stress. "I mean, we're not going to just walk away from a $3,000 bill. That would be insane." I raised an eyebrow. "No one's walking away, Rachel. You guys are staying and paying. I'm done with this charade. I don't care if you're my family. You've been taking advantage of me for years, and I'm done." Jason's face was turning red now, frustration bubbling up to the surface. "You can't be serious. You're just going to let us suffer here? We're stuck with the bill, Mark, and I'm stuck with the bill? You think I'm the one who made those choices?" I interrupted. "You all decided what you were ordering. You made the choices, now live with the consequences." Rachel opened her mouth to argue, but my mother cut her off, her voice trembling. "Mark, please. This isn't the time for this. We're family, remember? Just help us out. You can afford it." Her words hung in the air like a weight. They knew I could afford it. That's the thing. They knew how much I was making, how successful I'd become. But they never saw that success as something I'd earned. No, they just saw it as an opportunity to mooch off me. I stood up slowly, straightening my jacket. "No, I can't afford it, Mom. You can. Jason can. Rachel can. But I'm not covering your mess this time." I turned toward the waiter, who had been hovering nearby, clearly aware of what was going on. I caught his eye and gave him a quick nod, signaling that I was done. And just like that, I walked toward the exit, not looking back. I heard the murmurs as I stepped out of the lounge and into the cool evening air. I didn't look back. The sound of footsteps following me made my pace slow, but I wasn't about to turn around. They dug their own hole. Now, it was time to see how deep they'd have to dig to get out of it. It wasn't long before I reached the parking lot, my hands stuffed in my pockets as I stood there, staring at my car. I could hear the clatter of heels approaching, and then Rachel's voice calling my name. Mark, wait. I didn't respond. My heart rate was steady. I was calm, but I could hear her desperation, how she was trying to pull me back into their drama. I didn't want to play this game anymore. Mark, she called again, her voice shaking. You can't just leave. Please, this is serious. I turned around, cutting her off mid-sentence. You think I don't know what's serious, Rachel? You think I don't know exactly what you're doing? She stopped in her tracks, and for a moment, there was silence. The wind rustled through the trees, and I could feel the tension between us. She was struggling to find words, but I wasn't going to let her. Not this time. You've been using me for years, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Every time something comes up, it's, Mark, you'll cover this, right? It's never, hey, Mark, how are you? It's always been about what I can do for you. Well, I'm done. Her eyes flickered, and I could see the guilt flash across her face before she quickly masked it with an angry expression. You can't just leave us hanging like this. She snapped, her voice growing louder. We need you. You can't just walk away from family when we're in a tough spot. I felt my jaw tighten, but I forced myself to stay calm. I'm not walking away from family, Rachel. I'm walking away from your entitlement. This isn't family. This is manipulation. And I'm done letting you use me. For a moment, she just stood there, her face flushed, trying to figure out what to say next. But before she could respond, I saw Jason and my mom emerge from the restaurant, looking frantic. Jason's shirt was half untucked, and he looked like he'd been running. My mom's expression was a mixture of guilt and panic, her eyes wide as she spotted me standing there, just out of reach. Mark, please. We don't know what we're going to do, my mom said, her voice cracking. We can't afford this. You're the only one who can help us. Her words hit me, but not in the way she expected. I felt a strange, almost detached satisfaction as I watched their desperation unfold. They had pushed me for so long, and now they were realizing that there was a cost to everything. You think I'm just going to bail you out again? Huh? I asked, my voice more quiet now. You think this is just about money? Well, it's not. This is about respect. This is about recognizing that I've worked my ass off to get where I am. And you can't just keep using me when things don't go your way. Jason took a step forward, hands held out, pleading. Mark, come on, don't do this. We're family. You've got to understand, this isn't just about the money. It's about, no, Jason, I cut him off. My tone hard now. It's always been about the money for you. The second you thought I'd pay, you stopped considering me as a person. You saw me as an ATM. I could see Jason's face redden as he struggled for words, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. It was as if he couldn't believe this was happening, like he couldn't comprehend that I wasn't just going to fold under pressure. I glanced at my mom, who was looking more frantic now. Her eyes darted between me and the restaurant, probably wondering if I was going to come back in and solve the problem for them. But I wasn't. Not this time. You've made your bed, now you lie in it, I said, turning away. I'm done here. Before they could say anything else, I opened the door to my car and slid in. I started the engine, the low hum of the car filling the silence between us. I could see their figures in my rearview mirror, still standing there, frozen in disbelief. But I wasn't about to feel bad for them. They had their chance. They always had their chance. As I drove off, I felt this strange sense of liberation. For once, I wasn't being the sucker. I wasn't the one who was going to get used. And as the restaurant faded into the distance, I knew I had made the right choice. They had pushed too far. Now it was time for them to face the consequences of their actions. I hadn't gotten far when my phone buzzed, and I knew instantly it was them. I didn't bother answering. Let them call, let them text. I wasn't picking up anymore. But of course, they didn't give up. They didn't just let it go. By the time I reached home, there were 6 missed calls from my mom, from Jason, and a text from Rachel that read, Mark, we're really sorry. Please come back. We'll pay you back. Please don't leave us like this. I stared at the text for a long moment, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, but I didn't reply. I didn't need to. They had no idea just how badly they'd miscalculated. I tossed my phone on the couch and grabbed a beer from the fridge. It was quiet in my apartment. I could hear the faint sound of traffic outside, the soft hum of the refrigerator, and nothing else. The silence felt so much better than the chaos I just walked away from. But as the minutes passed, I started to feel this odd mix of satisfaction and something else. Relief? Maybe? It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about finally standing up for myself, something I'd never truly done with them. Just then, I heard the sound of my phone buzzing again. I glanced over. It was another text from Rachel. This time it was short and to the point. We can't pay the bill. It's $3,000. Please help. That was it. I stared at the message for a long time. It felt almost unreal. $3,000. The same amount they'd casually dropped on me earlier, thinking it was no big deal. I thought about how they had expected me to cover it all, how they had planned their night around me picking up the check like it was nothing. I didn't feel sorry for them. Not at all. I sat back down on the couch, cracking open the beer, and watched the screen, waiting for the inevitable calls to follow. It was like clockwork. Not even 5 minutes later, the phone buzzed again, this time with a call from Jason. I picked it up. "Mark," he started, his voice thick with frustration. "Look, we get it. You're mad. But we need your help. We can't cover this. You have to help us." I could hear the desperation in his voice. The panic. It almost made me smile, but I held it in. "Jason, I already told you," I said, my voice even. "You need to figure this out yourselves. You've got yourselves into this mess. It's not my problem. But Mark, you don't understand. This is family." Jason snapped, his words rushing together. "You're just going to leave us to deal with this on our own? After everything we've been through? Everything we've been through?" I repeated, incredulous. "You mean the years of you all treating me like an ATM? The endless requests for help that always came with strings attached? That's what you mean?" There was a pause on the other end, then a long sigh. "I didn't mean it like that, Mark. Please. We're not using you. We just need help." "Help?" I said. "What I've been giving you isn't help, Jason. It's enabling. And you know what? You'll figure it out. You're grown adults. If I keep bailing you out, you'll never learn." The silence that followed was heavy. He didn't argue anymore. I knew he understood what I was saying, even if he didn't want to admit it. "Good luck, Jason," I said, my tone colder now. "You'll need it." I hung up before he could say anything else. The rest of the night passed quietly. I enjoyed my beer, put on a movie, and let everything unfold. Sure enough, I got one last text from my mom, reading, "Mark, please. If you're still upset, we'll make it up to you. Just please come back and pay the bill." But I didn't reply. They were on their own now. The next day, I learned they hadn't been able to pay the bill and had to make some embarrassing calls to their own friends for help. I heard they even had to take out a loan to cover part of it. The worst part? The manager of the restaurant had called them out for trying to play the family card and using people to cover their irresponsible spending. They were humiliated. And me? I didn't feel an ounce of guilt. In the end, the real payoff wasn't the money or the satisfaction of watching them struggle. It was the fact that for once, I had taken control. I had finally drawn the line, and that was worth way more than any meal I could have paid for. I wasn't going to be their fool anymore. I had learned the hard way that sometimes the best way to love family was to let them stand on their own 2 feet, even if it meant they'd fall flat. I'd done my part. Now, it was their turn to figure it out.